Get a DOJ that's telling this judge to go pound sand or go to hell, right? Because we're not going to do anything that you want us to do because we do not feel that you have the legal jurisdiction to even be here doing this to begin with, right? This is what we saw out of Pam Bondi as she was effectively saying, yeah, this is not going to happen. Like, you guys just don't have the authority. They said yesterday, you're beating a dead horse. He said, okay, I'll give you till noon on Thursday. Noon has come and gone. We're now 60 minutes past the deadline. Nothing's happened. And I suspect the Trump DOJ, the White House, is actually gearing up for another sort of layer in all of this as the legal challenges mount. Because what they are saying is that you guys just don't have the jurisdiction. This is not your thing to be involved with. And so he's now, James Boasberg, trying to say there's going to be consequences. And they're like, consequences? What are you talking about, buddy? You don't have the right. We got the Aliens Enemy Act of 1798 on our side, and that's what we're going with. So they've deported 261 illegal criminals that were part of a Venezuelan gang that is known to be a threat to the United States. They've deported them to a prison in El Salvador where life is not going to be very good. Let's be very clear. As it should not be, right? These are known criminals. They're bad people. So they put them on a plane in the dead of the night. The judge got all worked up, wants to know what time the plane left. When did they get the order that he had said, nope, you got to stop and turn around, because they just kept flying until they actually landed. So now he's out there warning of consequences. And I'm like, what are you gonna do, buddy? Possible consequences after DOJ pushback on questions about deportation flights. I asked a friend who's a very liberal attorney this just yesterday and was told, there's not a whole lot that can be done because this is something that eventually gets fought in the court of public opinion. As I've said all along, the public, they're not with the judge on this one. They're with the DOJ. They want the criminals off the street. So we saw from the White House, they said just yesterday, the court has now spent more time trying to ferret out information about the government's flight schedules and relations with foreign countries than it did in investigating the facts before certifying the class action in this case. The observation reflects how upside down this case has become as digressive micromanagement has outweighed consideration of the case's legal issues. This is in the filing that they put forward. The distraction of the specific facts surrounding the movements of an airplane has derailed this case long enough and should end until the circuit court has had enough chance to weigh in. In other words, they're like, you just forget about it, right? And Pam Bondi, after the judge said, we're going to extend the deadline to noon on Thursday, which she's blown through, went on to Fox and was like, yeah, you can just kind of go to hell, buddy. My words, not hers, but you'll get her drift. Let's watch.
Line to answer questions. Those questions include the following. What time did the plane take off from U.S. soil? Where did it leave from? What time did it leave U.S. airspace? And what time did it land in a foreign country? You have, 4, 5, 6 questions the judge wants answers to regarding the details of those flights over the weekend. How will you respond at the Department of Justice?
Well, Will, our lawyers are working on this. We will answer appropriately, but what I will tell you is this judge has no right to ask those questions. You have one unelected federal judge trying to control foreign policies, trying to control the Alien Enemies Act, which they have no business presiding over. And there are 261 reasons why Americans are safer now. That's because those people are out of this country. The judge had no business, no power to do what he did. And Will, he came in on an emergency basis on a Saturday with very, very short notice, if any, to our attorney to run in the courtroom. And this has been a pattern with these liberal judges. You just spoke about that. It's been a pattern with what they've been doing. This judge had no right to do that. They're meddling in foreign affairs. They're meddling in our government. And the question should be, why is a judge trying to protect terrorists who have invaded our country over American citizens. You know, TDA is a terrorist organization. They are organized. They have a government structure within them. They are sending money not only throughout this country to each other, but back to Venezuela. They are a terrorist organization, and we are not going to have that in our country. We are going to deport them, and we're going to continue to deport them. We will honor what the court says, but we will appeal, and we will continue to fight terrorists within our country, Will. Not going to stop, and we're going to get them out of here.
Boom. Okay? Boom. So they're saying we have every right to be doing this. We're going to keep on doing it. And you can complain all you want, James Boasberg, but you don't have the right to be doing this. You're completely out of line. And again, they've got this Aliens Enemy Act of 1798 that's working for them. So that's the thing that maybe gets thrown all the way up to the Supreme Court. We'll have to see. The U.S. judge, of course, he temporarily blocked the deportations. He wants to consider the implications of using this act and said that, you know, they can't just carry off migrants in the dead of the night. And they're like, oh yeah, we can, right? So they're moving first, asking questions later. They came out and said, initially, the White House response, this came courtesy of Caroline Leavitt, said the administration did not refuse to comply with the court order. The order, which has no lawful basis, was issued after terrorist aliens had already been removed from the U.S. territory. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft carrier full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from this country. So now, again, just going back to where we are in all of this, the judge realized that they weren't going to get any answers that he wanted as of yesterday. So then he said, well, I'll extend the deadline till Thursday. And then that deadline came and went, and they're just like, guys, you have no right. Judge Boasberg, you have no right to be asking these questions. So CNN was debating this last night, and I thought this was interesting because Eli Honig, who is an attorney and a former member of the DOJ himself, actually came out and admitted that he was sort of blown away by the cojones, shall we say, of this administration and the fact that Pam Bondi was like not doing anything and not budging. You got to see this clip. He's impressed, he says, a little dismayed, but also impressed.
This judge has been, if anything, remarkably patient and solicitous with Trump's DOJ. I mean, I've been watching what DOJ has been doing, the way they've been responding to this judge over the last 3 days, with awe and astonishment. I mean, this is now the third consecutive day the judge has said, I want specific details from you, Justice Department. And they have responded by saying, we'll give you a little bit, but no, you don't need the rest of that. We're not giving that to you. I'm halfway horrified by this as a DOJ alum. I'm halfway, I guess, impressed. I mean, they're sort of really standing up to him. Today, they said to this judge, you are beating a dead horse. In writing, they said that to the judge. I mean, that is unimaginable as a DOJ alum. I guess I've fantasized about saying that to a judge, but I would never say it out loud. And yet this judge continues to give them more time. The other thing is, what's the big ruling that the judge has made here that's apparently so contrary to the Trump administration? All he has said is, let's try to pause here so I can take a couple days and work through this complicated legal issue. He hasn't actually even ruled against them yet this response.
Yeah, it's just temporary. He might actually agree with it.
You know what? They're saying you don't have the right to jump in here anyway. So that's that. Edgar Pomeroy, thank you so much for the compliment and for your generosity. I so appreciate it. I have the best viewers. I really, really do. It's good to see all of you here today. Reminder, subscribe, share, like, make a comment, all that good stuff. So Pam Bondi is now saying that they will answer the questions within reason, but, you know, she's not meeting the deadline, and she doesn't think that these questions are within reason. That's something that we heard from Stephen Miller, the deputy policy chief, earlier this morning. Let me go to his sound right now. He said this just moments ago.
You cannot have a democracy where single individual district court judges can assume the full total powers of the commander-in-chief. Even on the Supreme Court, it takes agreement of 5 Supreme Court justices to change a federal policy. 5. A single district court judge out of 700 cannot set policy for the entire nation, let alone on national security and public safety issues. The president has been clear that he has tremendous respect for Justice Roberts and believes it's essential the Supreme Court crack down and stop this assault on our democracy from these radical rogue judges that are usurping the powers of the presidency and laying waste to our entire constitutional system.
Wow. Okay, so he's saying you're usurping the powers of the presidency. You're basically, sticking a middle finger at the entire Constitution. And we're not going to play that game because we're not going to get stuck on defense again. This lawfare was all we went through for 4 years. So we're just going to move first. We're going to ask questions later. And Judge James Boasberg, good luck. I really don't know what your penalty is going to be. When you say there can be penalties, what are you going to do? Now lock up Pam Bondi? I don't think they have anything. So they're calling their bluff. They're saying we're not going to play this game. We're not going to engage in this lawfare. And we have every right to be doing what we're doing. There's a former U.S. attorney that just said this recently on another network. I want to cut to him because he's basically making the point that they are trying to engage in lawfare and that they just don't have the power to do this. And so the Donald Trump administration, the DOJ, is right to say, we're not going to play that game. Here we go.
Well, ultimately, nearly all, this is lawfare by other means. I think Caroline Leavitt sort of alluded to that. There's been 129 lawsuits in Trump's less than 60 days of being in office. To put it in further context, in his first term, there were 64 injunctions against Trump. That's more than the sum of George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden's administration all put together. The legality of Donald Trump, President Trump, is absolutely right. It doesn't matter. This is a 1798 law. We're using gobs of the First Amendment right now on your air. That's an even older law. And so the Alien Enemies Act, what the president did is he very shrewdly intertwined TDA with the Venezuela government and as calling it a hybrid criminal state because Maduro and TDA have joined together in law enforcement, in military. The Maduro government funds TDA to come to the United States, to bring cocaine, to sow discord, to engage in violence. And he has enacted the Alien Enemies Act, declared TDA a foreign terrorist organization, and ordered their removal. That's what the AEA was meant to do. And so the president has acted in his Article 2 authorities. And for a district judge in Washington, D.C., and I hope you'll ask me about all the mistakes this judge has made already, but for a judge to substitute his judgment for the President of the United States or the ACLU's judgment, you might as well substitute the winner of the Publishers Clearinghouse's judgment for the president.
Wow. All right, so this is heating up, you guys, and I think that they're getting called out. In other words, people are like, we realize there's an establishment very hard at work, whether it be the media, whether it be some of the judicial entities, and we're going to push back against that with the Constitution on our side, going back, I know it hasn't been used in a while, to a little-known Aliens Enemy Act of 1798, but they're going to use what they have, what they can, and they're going to move first and ask questions later. Stephen Miller, obviously furious about this. He spent a lot of time studying this. Pam Bondi, same story. And then you're seeing former U.S. attorneys saying, this is nothing but a whole bunch of lawfare. I agree with it. It's lawfare. But here's the deal. This administration is ready for it. All right? Know that. They're ready, willing, and able. And they have spent the last 4 years studying the Constitution and studying the law to be prepared to do exactly this. Donald Trump saying, of course I can use this 1798 law. Even I was, this is for a time of war. It's a time of war. He's like, what do you think this is? We got a terror organization trying to infiltrate the United States of America. Does that not qualify as a kind of war? Here he is over the weekend on Air Force One.
In the United States, it's an invasion. And these are criminals, many, many criminals. Murderers, drug dealers at the highest level, drug lords, people from mental institutions. That's an invasion. They invaded our country. So this isn't, in that sense, this is war.
Yeah. He's not wrong. Okay, we've been invaded. That has to stop. It is stopping. We're going to talk about that because border crossings are down 95%. Amazing. You know, the Democrats said this could not be done. And what do you know? It sure as heck got done. Anyway, take a look at this right here. This is a conservative congressman just tearing into an anchor on CNN saying, why are you supporting the bad guys? I will say this. They're going to have a hard time in the court of public opinion with the narrative they've got going on. We're going to protect the extraordinarily dangerous, brutal criminals out of a gang from Venezuela?
Well, but so no matter what a judge
and he's
says,
taking the side, and he's taking the side of a bunch of criminals.
He hasn't taken any. He hasn't taken any side yet, Congressman. He hasn't taken any side yet. All he's done is put a stay on the White House action here so that he can review their use of their novel use, frankly, of the Alien Enemies
Oh, come
Act.
on. These guys, listen. These guys, the difference between God and these judges is God knows he's not one of these judges. They're arrogant. They practice this type of thing all the time. And if you had a conservative one doing it, you all would be raising total hell. But because it's a left-winger and it's Sandy and you all take that side, it's ridiculous that you all would take the side of a bunch of murderers.
No one's taking a side here. Congressman,
yes,
no
you
one's
are.
taking a side here.
He is not.
I'm asking you about the Constitution. Is asking about the Constitution. Is asking about the Constitution taking a side. All I'm asking you is about the Constitution, what you think of it, and what you would advise this White House and your feeling about judicial rulings. And that seems to be upsetting you. I'm just trying to get your position on this and what you would advise the White House going forward.
It's not upsetting. I guess what upsets me is that you all at CNN continuously take the side of the far left, and that's why your ratings continue to plummet. And I do not ever understand why y'all do that. Every time. I know you got to take the opposite side on everything, but you all are wrong on this one. Listen, this is a gang that took over an apartment complex in Colorado. They murdered people. They are criminals.
We're trying to understand.
Now,
you can
criminals.
argue.
They are not
You
American
can argue.
citizens. Quit taking their side, CNN.
Congressman,
what
can
is
you?
wrong with you all?
Congressman,
you are so out of touch with what's 85% of this country
Congressman,
does not support what you are spewing out right now.
We haven't spewed. The only one spewing is the guy who's talking.
By the way, that's Representative Tim Burchett out of Tennessee, and he's on to something. The majority of the country does not support trying to dilly-dally and think through, whether or not you can deport people of a known criminal gang from a known enemy country coming in here and hanging out, okay? That's not okay. So this is why, I'm telling you, this is why if all the Democrats had showed up, we had a new study that came out this week showing that, guess what? Trump would have won by an even larger percentage, 5 points instead of 1.7 points. Believe it or not, this is according to David Shore, and this is from Blue Rose Research, okay? He would have won by an even larger margin. So what happens? You now have this judge saying, well, there's going to be consequences, And I'm like, what consequences? I mean, the people have made it really, really clear. And they're using actual law from the Constitution. So I'm not really sure where you're going to come out on this one. I guess you can try and escalate this thing up the food chain, but you're getting a middle finger of sorts, are you not? From the DOJ.